Our next talk this evening is by Christopher Wigren. At the Trust, Chris is an advisor, and he's also a very active member of our Preservation Committee. But professionally, Chris is also a Deputy Director of Preservation Connecticut, and he is the author of a book that many people here will know, Connecticut Architecture, Stories of 100 Places. Tonight, he's going to tell us another story, a story which I believe is a fine example of how preservation can get ahead of the game. So Chris, I'll pass over to you.
Thank you, Rona. Thank you. It's a delight to be here. And like Preston, I just wish I could be in the same room with everybody this evening. Can we move with the slides? One of the great ironies of history is that the modern movement, which sought to escape the bonds of history, has in fact become part of history. Or if you want to flip it to the other side, you can say that the historic preservation movement, which emerged in large part as a reaction against modernism, has come to recognize the historic significance of modernist architecture, planning, landscape design. And few places have been as significantly shaped by the modern movement as New Haven. In the years after World War II, the city became a nationally known laboratory for modernist architecture and planning, thanks in large part to the influence of the Yale School of Architecture, which brought leading modernists to New Haven to teach, and which produced many architects who chose to remain in the city. Yale's own post-war building program commissioned works by internationally known modernist architects. And New Haven's urban renewal program employed the latest trends in modernist planning and also aimed to produce the best in modern architecture. The early emergence of the New Haven Preservation Trust, 5 years before the National Historic Preservation Act, can perhaps be credited to the strength of the modern movement in New Haven. As Marianne said, it was one emergency after another. Here we see one of them, battling the battle for the post office in the mid-1960s. But by the beginning of the 21st century, New Haven's collection of modernist architecture was well known, but was also increasingly threatened by growing recognition of modernism's problems, by maintenance needs of aging buildings, and by changing tastes. At the same time, popular interest in modernism was growing, and many modernist works were approaching the 50-year date for National Register designation. So the New Haven Preservation Trust realized that it needed better information on which to advocate responsibly for the preservation of the city's modernist heritage. The best way to do that was to undertake a wide-ranging study of modernism. As John said, the foundation for everything that comes beyond. So the Preservation Trust had 4 goals. The first was to recognize and document an important era in the city's history, one that brought drastic change and that had national, if not international, repercussions. Second, to recognize and document New Haven's extensive collection of modernist architecture. Third, to make the case for careful renovation and adaptation of significant works. And fourth, to promote New Haven's heritage as a potential source of local pride and an attraction for visitors. So the survey was carried out in 3 main phases. The first was a context report by architectural historian Rachel Carley, called "Tomorrow is Here, New Haven and the Modern Movement." It provided the historical context and essential background information for compiling the subsequent inventory of modernist architecture. Rachel's study was completed in 2008 with funding from the Connecticut State Historic Preservation Office. You can read a quick summary of the titles of the contents from past as prologue to early efforts to urban renewal and a evaluation of what modernism accomplished. The second phase was the real heart of the survey. A team of students and volunteers overseen by trust staff fanned out across the city and completed 123 survey forms for modernist buildings constructed roughly between 1930 and 1980, and not already included in the city's historic resource inventory, which did indeed already include some of the major monuments of modern architecture. The survey covered a wide range of building types, from housing to institutional buildings, to Yale and other educational buildings, civic architecture, and works of the Urban Renewal Program. And it also highlighted the work of local architects. The third step, then, was to make all this information available to the widest array possible of the public. And that was accomplished through a website which went live in 2014, presenting a comprehensive overview of New Haven's rich involvement with the modernist movement and designed to be a hub of information. It included an overview with a link to read the entire context report, building forms, glossary, description of method. Since then, the work has continued beyond the 3 phases. Older resource inventory forms have been incorporated into the website. A few new ones have been added, and other projects have included oral histories with architects such as Kevin Roach and Edward Cherry, who were active during the modernist era. The project also fed into the Trust's ongoing work and informed statewide preservation efforts as well. It has inspired tours, lectures, and other public education programs. It has been support for advocacy for threatened historic resources, even though that was not always successful. And the survey helped identify places for designation on the state or national registers of historic places, not only identifying individual sites, but again, providing the crucial background and contextual information to support those nominations. The Modernist Project has been recognized with awards from the Connecticut Trust for Historic Preservation and the US chapter of Docomomo, the international organization dedicated to the documentation and conservation of buildings, sites, and neighborhoods of the modern movement. The Docomomo jury statement said, "The New Haven survey is an important effort in a city known for its collection of great modern architecture. The community engagement component of the project was very effective and is a model for other efforts of this kind." The modernist era brought transformational changes to New Haven, some for the better, some for the worse. It tore apart thriving neighborhoods and produced architectural works that could at times be banal and soulless, sometimes using experimental materials that have not stood the test of time. It also created works of great beauty, meaning, and usefulness, as well as a legacy of public action to create a more humane settings for civic and personal life, and a warning that architecture alone cannot achieve these goals. The mission of the New Haven Preservation Trust is to preserve the city's best sites and adapt others to meet the human needs of the city. Only by understanding our history can we do that. The Modernism Project represents an important effort in that process of understanding, evaluating, and preserving so that we can learn from and honor our past and build a better future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's really fascinating to see how the different parts of this project came together and the number of people who were involved in such a range of ways. I hope that after this talk, people will go to and perhaps go back to the New Haven Modern website and explore, and then perhaps go out into the city and explore and see with new eyes the modernist structures within the city. It is quite a remarkable heritage that the Trust has been very involved in promoting, and Chris himself has been very involved in promoting. Thank you very much, Chris.